First, we talked about what the land is like in Louisiana. Then we talked about the different people that have come to settle in Louisiana. Today, we're going to put those two ideas together to talk about how and why people change the land in Louisiana. So, when people come to a new area, they have to make changes to the land to make sure that they can survive. And we're going to talk about what those changes are and how they help them survive. First, let's review the geography or the land of Louisiana. What is the land like? Well, we have hills and forests up in the north. We have swamps and low ground to the south. And my physical map here teaches me what the land is like. But let's look at another map to get some more information. Let's look at a climate map that shows us weather patterns. Our key shows us high temperatures in red, low temperatures in blue, and I see that my low temperatures are up in the north. So that teaches me that also Louisiana is colder in the north than it is in the south. Use this information to fill out the part 1 of your worksheet. Now, we learned the word adapt last week when we learned about Native American settlers, but let's review it to make sure that we understand it. It's a very important idea. To adapt means to change to better fit your environment. So people adapt to their environment so they can survive. Let's look at some examples. The bus has been coming early, so I adapted by getting up earlier. I changed to better fit my environment. The room was too cold, so I adapted by bringing a sweater. Another good example. Native Americans adapted to the swamps by building homes out of plants and traveling in pirogues. So they learned to travel in their environment. They lived in swamps, so they learned to travel in water, and they also had a lot of plants around them, so they learned to make their homes out of plants. Those are changes that they made to better fit their environment. How is this an example of an adaptation? This is an average New Orleans home, but there's an adaptation here, something people did to better fit their environment. Look at the side. We see that the home is just raised up off the ground. Well, people in New Orleans raise their homes up off the ground because New Orleans is close to the Mississippi River and close to the Gulf of Mexico. So we're in danger of flooding. So people raise up their homes so that they can protect their homes from floods. That's an adaptation that people make. People adapt by raising their homes up off the ground to protect from flooding. Now let's look at other ways that people might adapt or change the land to better survive. Now, these adaptations are things that people do to the land. So let's take a look. First is clear land. Fill that out in the first box in your chart for part 2. The first adaptation people make is to clear land. They actually change the land by clearing out the trees and flattening it. And why do they do that? Why do people clear land? People clear land so that they can build roads and stores and homes. That helps them survive. Now, there are consequences. When people clear land, they destroy the plants and animals that live there. This will help you fill out the reason why people clear land. Next, people build dams and dam rivers. Now, a dam is like a wall that blocks the flow of a river. Why do people build dams? Well, dams help people control the river. That's the reason. They can stop flooding and people can store water for drinking. When people build dams, though, fish cannot swim along the river, so there are consequences to building dams, too. What's the next adaptation or change people make to the land? Well, it's building levees. These are very important here in near the Mississippi River. Now, why do people build levees? Well, levees stop floods. They block the river. They're like walls at the edges of the river. But when people build levees, the river cannot flow properly. Flooding can be bad for homes, but can actually be good for the land. It drops off good soil from the river onto the land, and it also waters the plants. So flooding can be good for the land, even if it's bad for people. And levees stop the flooding. Let's look a little bit about how levees work. They're like big walls at the edge of a river that can protect homes. Now, we see that levees don't always work. Sometimes they don't protect us and don't help us survive if the levees aren't built strong enough. The next adaptation people make or change to the land that people make is building bridges. Now, why do people build bridges? Bridges help people travel. When people build bridges, they must clear land. So when we talked about clearing land and it destroying plants and animals in their homes, it can also happen when people build bridges because they have to clear the land to build the bridge. Now let's look at an example. If you turn your worksheet over and look at part 3, there's a map with a town on it. We're on this piece of land near the river, near the coast and the water, and we're going to look at how people might change or adapt to their environment to better survive. So the first change that somebody might make if they lived in this area is to build levees. So first I would build levees to protect from floods, maybe along the river, maybe even along the ocean here. A new problem, though, comes. Population is growing. We need more room for people to live. Now we have to change to better suit our environment. We have to adapt. So I clear land to make room for new homes. I would clear some land out, cut down the trees, make room for new homes. Then we'd have a new problem. People need to get around easier. So third, I would build a bridge to help people travel. Now, we're going to talk more about how these different changes or adaptations people make to the land can impact the land in different ways. See you next time.